Have you ever looked at your grown children and wondered, when did the tone change? When did the warmth in their voice turn into something else? A hint of impatience, or worse, dismissal. Maybe you've noticed them ignoring your advice, brushing off your concerns, or making decisions for you as if you weren't even in the room. It doesn't happen all at once, but over time the feeling creeps in that they don't see you the way they used to. And sometimes deep down, it starts to feel like they don't see you as strong anymore. Now, this isn't something folks talk about at family gatherings or Sunday church, but it's real. It's happening in living rooms across the country, from small-town Nebraska to sunny Florida. Parents in their 60s, 70s, even 80s starting to feel like they're being quietly pushed to the sidelines. It's subtle at first. Fewer phone calls, decisions made without asking you, advice dismissed with a smile, but it leaves a mark. And if you're feeling it, you are not alone. That's why this conversation matters, because your role as a parent doesn't vanish with time. Because your role as a parent doesn't vanish with time, your wisdom doesn't expire, and your strength, your real strength, isn't measured by how fast you walk or how many jars you can open. It's measured by the presence you bring, the values you hold, and the way you carry yourself, even when the world wants to tell you to step aside. So today, let's talk about something that isn't easy, but is necessary. The signs that your children may be starting to see you as weak, not because they're bad kids, not because they don't love you, but because knowingly or not, some of the signals we send through our words, our choices, even our silence, can shift the way they view us. And once that shift happens, it becomes harder to get their respect back. Let's start where this often begins, with how we carry ourselves in conversations. Have you noticed yourself saying yes to things you're not comfortable with, just to keep the peace? Maybe your son suggests you move out of the family home and into a condo, and even though your gut says no, you nod, smile, and say, well, maybe it's time. Or maybe your daughter wants to take over handling your finances, and while a part of you bristles, you don't say a word, because you don't want to seem difficult. Here's the hard truth. When you stop standing up for what matters to you, even in small ways, your kids start to see you as someone who's fading, not leading. And they begin to take the reins, not out of cruelty, but because they think you've let go of them. Strength, at any age, means having the courage to speak your truth kindly, but firmly. It's okay to say, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not ready to make that change. It's not about being stubborn. It's about being present in your own life, not a passenger in theirs. Another sign that often goes unnoticed is when your children start treating you more like a dependent than a parent. Maybe they speak slowly to you, as if you're confused. Maybe they correct you in front of others, even when you haven't asked. Maybe they take over tasks you're perfectly capable of doing, and you let them, not because you can't, but because you think it's easier. Over time, these little moments add up, and before long, the balance of power has shifted, not because they took it, but because you gave it away. But here's the good news. You can take it back, not by yelling, not by demanding, but by simply showing them, through your actions, that you are still engaged, still thoughtful, and still in control of your choices. That starts with doing what you say you'll do. If you tell your son you'll be at your granddaughter's recital, show up early, and sit proudly in the front row. If you say you're learning something new, whether it's online banking or Tai Chi, stick with it. Follow through isn't just a practical skill, it's a signal that says, I'm still sharp, I still count. Let's also talk about the way you ask questions. Now, this might sting a little, but it's important. Sometimes, without realizing it, we begin to ask for permission rather than offering input. Do you think I should buy this? Is it okay if I come over? Would it be all right if I offered a suggestion? Now look, there's nothing wrong with being polite, but there's a difference between being courteous and acting like you need their approval for every little thing. When your children sense that you don't trust your own judgment, they start to trust it less too, and slowly they stop seeking your guidance. That's not the legacy you want. And it's not the kind of relationship that honors who you are. Your kids don't need a shadow version of the parent who raised them. They need your grounded presence, your life experience, and your steady hand. Especially now, in a world that feels more chaotic than ever. So the next time you feel tempted to downplay your thoughts or ask for permission to exist in your own family, take a breath. Ask yourself, am I shrinking myself to keep the peace? And if the answer is yes, remember, peace that comes at the cost of your dignity is no peace at all. You've lived a lot of life, you've weathered storms they've never even seen. And while the body may change with time, your value, your wisdom, your heart, your presence has only grown. If you've noticed some of these patterns in your own life, don't beat yourself up. You're not alone. And it's never too late to make small shifts that lead to big change. And when you start showing up differently, a little more confident, a little more rooted, a little more sure of yourself, you may be surprised. Your children might start looking at you differently too. Not as someone who needs to be managed, but as someone whose presence still carries weight.
Oh,
Not as someone who's slipping, but someone who's standing tall, maybe in quieter ways, but no less powerful. Let's keep going. There's more to explore in how we carry ourselves in this season of life, and how, with a little awareness and intention, we can regain the respect we deserve. There's something powerful that happens when you stop asking for permission to be who you are, when you remember that just because your kids are grown, doesn't mean you've become smaller. But here's the thing. Some of the signs that your children are starting to see you as weak aren't always obvious. In fact, they can be wrapped in good intentions. And if you're not careful, they'll slip by unnoticed. Take, for instance, how your time is treated. Have you ever had a child who always expects you to drop everything when they call? Maybe they show up unannounced, ask for last-minute help, or assume that you'll rearrange your schedule because, well, you're retired now. Right.
lie.
You've got time. On the surface, it seems harmless. They're busy, you're more available, and maybe you enjoy feeling needed. But over time, if your time starts to feel like it's not your own anymore, it may be a sign that they've stopped seeing your plans and priorities as important. Respect begins with boundaries, and boundaries aren't walls. They're reminders that your life, your time, your energy still matter. It's okay to say, I can't do that today, or I already have plans. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you clear, and clear is kind. When your children know that your life is full, that you still have commitments, hobbies, routines, they're more likely to treat your time with care. But when they see that you'll always bend, always cancel, always adjust just for them,
Oh,
they stop viewing your schedule as something that counts. And it goes deeper than just time. It's about voice too. Have you ever shared an opinion and felt dismissed? Maybe you made a suggestion and they said, that's old-fashioned, or you just don't understand how things work now. It might be said with a laugh, a quick wave of the hand, but inside it stings. Because whether they realize it or not, they're sending a message. Your thoughts don't carry the same weight they used to. And you know what? That's not okay. Because while the world may have changed, the fundamentals haven't.
oh,
Kindness still matters. Integrity still matters. Hard work, honesty, loyalty, these aren't outdated ideas. They're timeless. And your perspective, shaped by decades of life, is more valuable now than ever. So when you're tempted to stay silent because they won't listen anyway, speak up. Not with force but with calm certainty. The more you trust your own voice, the more others will too. There's another sign that creeps in quietly, and it's one of the most painful when your children start making decisions for you without even asking.
yeah.
Maybe it's where you'll live, how your finances are handled, who gets what responsibility in the family. You're not consulted.
Yeah.
You're informed. And that shift from being the decision maker to being the recipient of decisions can feel like a loss you weren't prepared for. Now let's be honest. Some of that comes from love. Your kids worry. They want to make sure you're safe, taken care of, not overwhelmed. But good intentions don't erase the impact. When your voice is no longer part of the conversation, you become something to manage, not someone to respect. And that's not the kind of relationship you spend a lifetime building. If that's happening to you, the way forward isn't anger, it's clarity. Pull your child aside and say, I appreciate that you care, but I want to be part of the conversation. My life, my choices, my say, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that reminds them who you are. And if they resist, stay calm. Sometimes kids, even adult ones, need to be reminded that your mind hasn't faded just because your hair has grayed. And while we're talking about conversations, there's something else that might feel familiar. Have you ever felt like your presence in their lives is more of a formality than a desire, like they invite you out of obligation, not enthusiasm, or they call but only when they need something? That sense of being needed, but not necessarily wanted, it's subtle but it hurts. And sometimes, without realizing it, we reinforce that pattern. We say yes to everything. We give freely, our money, our time, our help, without ever expecting a true connection in return. But real respect doesn't come from how much you give. It comes from how much you value yourself. It's okay to say, I love helping, but I'd also just love to spend time with you. Not as a helper, but as your parent. It's okay to want more than duty. You deserve more than duty. Because here's the truth that often gets buried under politeness. The way your children treat you reflects the way you show up for yourself. If you constantly downplay your needs, your worth, your opinions, they'll follow your lead. But if you start standing a little taller, speaking with a little more confidence, and expecting the same respect you gave them as kids, something changes. They see you differently. And sometimes that's all it takes to shift the whole dynamic. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to demand to be heard. You just have to remember that you matter. That your place in the family is earned, not erased. That your years, your decades of love, labor, and loyalty are not something to be brushed aside. They are the foundation of everything that came after. So when you feel that moment of doubt, when you wonder if maybe this is just how things are now, that parents are meant to fade, stop. Remember who you are. Remember what you've lived through. And remember that strength at this stage of life is quiet, but unwavering. It's not about control. It's about presence. There's a moment in every parent's life when you look at your child, not as the baby you once held, not as the teenager you once grounded, but as the adult they've become. And in that moment there's often pride, but sometimes there's also a quiet ache, a sense that the relationship has shifted in a way you didn't expect, that instead of looking to you, they're looking past you, not always out of disrespect, but because somewhere along the way the balance changed. And if you're honest, maybe you allowed it to. But here's the good news. You don't need to shout, demand, or make big dramatic moves to shift things back. Real strength, especially now, shows up in how you carry yourself, in your steadiness, in your boundaries, in your quiet refusal to be treated as anything less than the full person you are. One of the clearest signals your children may see you as weak is when they start hiding things from you. Maybe they stop sharing what's going on in their lives. Maybe you hear about big decisions after the fact, or not at all. You're not consulted, just informed. And when you ask why, they say things like, "We didn't want to worry you," or "It's just easier this way. Ask ChatGPT." That sounds considerate. But let's be honest, it doesn't feel good. It feels like exclusion. Over time, it makes you feel invisible. But here's something to remember. When your children stop bringing you into their world, it's not always because they don't care. Sometimes it's because they've come to believe that you're too fragile for the truth, that you'll overreact, or misunderstand, or crumble under pressure. And while their intent might be kindness, the effect is isolation. You can shift that by how you respond. The next time your child shares something tough, a struggle, a mistake, a difficult choice, resist the urge to panic. Don't try to fix it, just listen, breathe, respond with calm, not judgment. Because every time you meet them with steadiness, you remind them that you're still strong enough to be leaned on. You show them that your age hasn't made you brittle, it's made you solid. And if you find yourself saying they never come to me anymore, then maybe the work starts with creating a space they feel safe in, a space where you're not just the parent but a trusted, respected presence in their lives. There's one more sign to look out for, and this one might be the hardest of all. It's when you start doubting your own value, when you catch yourself thinking, maybe I'm just in the way now, or they don't need me anymore. And instead of stepping forward, you step back, you disengage, you shrink. And that right there is the moment weakness becomes real, not because you've lost your strength, but because you've stopped using it. It happens slowly. You stop offering advice because you don't think it matters. You stop setting expectations because you don't want to be a burden. You let the phone ring without answering. You stop showing up in the way you once did, and before long, you faded into the background of your own family. But you are not a background character. You are the pillar. The roots, the reason so much of what they have is even possible. And your voice still matters. Your presence still matters. You matter. So if you've been holding back, if you've been afraid of overstepping, of upsetting, of looking like a difficult parent, pause, take a breath, and remember that there's nothing more respectable, nothing more powerful than a person who knows their worth and walks in it without apology. This isn't about being stubborn. It's not about showing them who's boss. It's about showing yourself and them that you are still here, still wise, still worthy of being seen, heard, and honored. You don't have to fight for your place. You just have to take up space with quiet confidence. Set your boundaries. Speak your truth. Let your children see the full version of who you are, not the watered-down version who's afraid of rocking the boat. Because your greatest influence doesn't come from raising your voice. It comes from raising your standards. And maybe, just maybe, your kids have been waiting for that all along. Cool. Waiting to be reminded that their parent is still strong, still sharp, still the person who taught them how to be who they are. So if any of this has struck a chord with you, if you've seen yourself in these moments, know that it's not too late to change the story. Not with resentment, not with shame, but with quiet, consistent strength. And if you found yourself thinking, I don't know where to start, maybe it's as simple as picking up the phone, not to ask if you're needed, but to say, I have something to say. Maybe it's declining something that doesn't sit right with you. Maybe it's doing something bold and unexpected, just to remind yourself that you still can. You don't have to prove your strength to anyone, but you do have to live like it's still inside you, because it is. If this message resonated with you, if you've ever felt overlooked, pushed aside, or quietly disrespected, know that you're not alone, and you don't have to stay there. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you experienced this shift with your kids? Have you found ways to regain that balance and respect? Let's create a space where we remind each other that age doesn't erase authority, it deepens it. And if this video helped you, please take a moment to like it, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel Strong Elderly Life for more conversations that speak to your heart, your strength, and your journey. You've come too far, lived too much, and given too deeply to be seen as anything less than the incredible person you are. Here's to living your best life, respected, strong, and unshakably yourself.